Gaius, a Roman official who has commanded hundreds of men, who has never begged for anything in his life, now finds himself completely powerless. All his authority, all his wealth, all his connections, useless against the invisible enemy stealing his son's life. He presses a cool cloth to his son's forehead, watching helplessly as it turns warm almost instantly. The fever is consuming his child from the inside out. And then he hears it, a whisper from one of the servants. The healer from Nazareth has come to Cana. Welcome to Hidden Heroes of Faith, where we uncover extraordinary stories of ordinary people whose lives were forever changed by encountering God. Today's story takes us back to ancient Galilee, where a desperate father faces his worst nightmare. What would you do if your child was dying? How far would you go? What lengths would you travel? What pride would you swallow? The story we're about to explore isn't just about a miraculous healing. It's about what happens when human power reaches its limits. It's about the moment when control slips through our fingers like water, leaving us with nothing but raw desperation and perhaps, just perhaps, the first seeds of true faith. In John chapter 4, we meet a royal official, a man we'll call Gaius, whose position gave him authority over others, but no power over his son's failing health. His journey from desperation to faith offers us profound lessons about what it means to truly trust God when everything is on the line. Let's return to that sick room in Capernaum where a father's heart is breaking. Gaius hasn't slept in days. His eyes are red-rimmed, his fine clothes rumpled from nights spent kneeling beside his son's bed. The room smells of sickness and sweat and the pungent herbs a physician had prescribed before giving up. Outside the window, normal life continues. Fishermen call to each other as they return with their morning catch. Merchants set up their stalls in the marketplace. Children laugh as they chase each other through the streets. How can the world go on when his is collapsing? As a Roman official in Herod's court, Gaius is used to respect, used to solutions, used to giving an order and watching it carried out immediately. But this enemy, this fever, obeys no commands. He thinks back to just 1 week ago. His son, healthy and strong, practicing with a wooden sword in the courtyard, dreaming of following his father into service to the king. Now the boy can barely lift his hand for a sip of water. The physicians have tried everything: bloodletting, poultices, expensive medicines imported from Egypt and Rome. Nothing has worked. The fever only climbs higher. Gaius has prayed to the Roman gods, has offered sacrifices, has promised anything and everything. The silence from the heavens is deafening. His wife enters the room, her face tight with worry, her eyes asking the question she doesn't dare speak aloud. Is there any change? Gaius shakes his head. They both know what this means. Without help, their son will not see another sunrise. And then, that whisper from the doorway. A servant, eyes downcast, voice hesitant. Master, forgive me, but I've heard news. The Galilean prophet, Jesus of Nazareth, has returned to Cana. The miracle worker? His wife asks, a dangerous hope flickering in her eyes. Gaius has heard the stories. Water turned to wine at a wedding. Sick people healed with just a word or touch. But he's also a practical man, skeptical of peasant superstitions and religious fanatics. He's just another charlatan, Gaius says dismissively. His son moans, his small body convulsing with another wave of fever. The sound cuts through Gaius like a knife. They say he healed the son of a widow in Nain, the servant continues. They say he brought the boy back from death itself. Brought back from death? Gaius looks at his dying son. What choice does he have? What does his pride matter now? How far is Cana? He asks, already reaching for his cloak. Almost 20 miles, master. If you leave now and take a horse, you could be there by nightfall. 20 miles, a full day's journey. Can he leave his son for that long? Can he afford not to? He kneels beside the bed, taking his son's burning hand in his own. Fight, my son, he whispers. Just hold on a little longer. I'm going to find help. The boy's eyelids flutter, but don't open. His breathing seems even shallower than before. Gaius kisses his son's forehead, then stands with new determination. Prepare my fastest horse, he commands. As the servants rush to obey, his wife touches his arm. What if this Jesus refuses to come? What if you can't find him? What if— I will find him, Gaius interrupts, his voice hard with resolve. And I will bring him back or die trying. He straps on his sword, a symbol of his authority that might open doors where his pleas alone would not. As a royal official, he's not accustomed to begging, but for his son, he will beg. He will crawl on his knees if necessary. The sun beats down mercilessly as he mounts his horse. 20 miles to Cana. 20 miles of hope and fear battling in his heart. 20 miles to find a miracle or return to bury his child. With one last look at the window of his son's room, Gaius digs his heels into his horse's flanks and gallops away from Capernaum, racing against time itself. The road from Capernaum to Cana cuts through the Galilean countryside like a dusty ribbon. Usually, Gaius would appreciate the beauty, the green hills dotted with sheep, the fields of barley swaying in the breeze, the glimpses of the great lake shimmering in the distance. Today, he sees none of it. His eyes are fixed on the path ahead, his mind replaying his son's face, his ears filled with the pounding of hooves and his own desperate prayers. The sun climbs higher. Sweat soaks through his tunic. His throat burns with thirst, but he doesn't stop. Can't stop. Every moment counts. He passes other travelers who scatter before his charging horse. Merchants with loaded donkeys call out angrily as he races by. He ignores them all. Miles blur together. His legs ache from gripping the horse's sides. His hands are raw from the reins. The horse's flanks are lathered with sweat, but Gaius pushes on, knowing he's asking too much of the animal, but unable to slow down. As he rides, doubt creeps in like a shadow. What if this Jesus is just another false prophet? Galilee has seen so many come and go. What if the stories of miracles are exaggerated? What if he reaches Cana only to find the man has already left for somewhere else? What if he returns home to find he's too late? The thought sends a chill through him despite the heat of the day. He urges the horse to go faster. By midday, the horse is stumbling with exhaustion. Gaius is forced to stop at a small stream, allowing the animal a few precious minutes to drink and cool down. He splashes water on his face, the cold a shock against his skin. In the quiet moment, reality settles over him like a heavy cloak. He, a Roman official who serves Herod Antipas himself, is chasing after a Jewish peasant preacher on the slimmest hope of a miracle. What would his colleagues say if they could see him now? What would Herod say? But as quickly as the doubt comes, Gaius pushes it away. Let them mock him. Let them strip him of his position. None of it matters if his son dies. Back on the road, the terrain grows more challenging. The path winds upward into the hills where Cana sits. His horse, despite the rest, is slowing. Gaius can feel the animal's labored breathing between his legs. Just a little farther, he urges, though he knows they still have miles to go. The afternoon wears on. The sun begins its descent toward the western horizon. Shadows lengthen across the path. And still Gaius rides. His mind drifts to memories of his son, his first steps, his laughter, the pride in his eyes when Gaius taught him to hold a sword properly. The thought that these might be all that remains of his child drives him forward with renewed determination. As the sun touches the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Gaius finally sees Cana in the distance. The small town sits nestled among vineyards, its white buildings glowing in the evening light. His horse is barely moving now, each step labored. Gaius dismounts and leads the exhausted animal the rest of the way, his own legs unsteady after hours in the saddle. At the town's entrance, he stops the first person he sees, an old woman carrying a water jug. "The teacher called Jesus," he gasps. "Where is he?" The woman looks him up and down, taking in his fine clothes, his sword, his Roman features. Her expression hardens. "Why would a man like you seek our rabbi?" "Please," Gaius says, and the word feels foreign on his tongue. When was the last time he truly pleaded with anyone? "My son is dying. I need to find Jesus." Something in his voice, the raw desperation perhaps, softens her gaze. "Follow the crowd," she says, pointing toward the center of town. "He's teaching near Jacob's well." Gaius thanks her and hurries forward, leading his limping horse through narrow streets. As he gets closer to the town center, he hears it, a murmur of voices growing louder, a crowd. Rounding a corner, he sees them. Dozens of people gathered in a semicircle, listening intently. At their center stands a man in simple clothes, speaking in a voice too low for Gaius to make out the words. Is this him? This ordinary-looking Jew with calloused hands and dusty sandals? Gaius pushes his way through the crowd, ignoring the protests and glares. Some recognize him as a royal official and step back. Others, resenting Roman authority, stand their ground until he physically moves them aside. Finally, he breaks through to the inner circle, and there, just feet away, stands Jesus of Nazareth. Their eyes meet across the dusty square. Jesus stops mid-sentence. The crowd falls silent, watching the confrontation between Roman power and Jewish teacher. Gaius takes a step forward, suddenly aware of how he must appear. Disheveled, desperate, nothing like the composed official he's supposed to be. In that moment, all his carefully prepared arguments and appeals vanish. All that remains is a father's breaking heart. "My son," he says, his voice cracking. "Please, my son is dying." The crowd holds its breath. No one moves. The evening air hangs heavy with anticipation. Jesus studies Gaius with eyes that seem to see beyond his exterior, beyond the sweat-stained tunic, beyond the sword at his hip, beyond the trappings of authority. Gaius has the unsettling feeling that this man is looking directly into his soul. When Jesus finally speaks, his words are not what Gaius expected. "Unless you people see signs and wonders," Jesus says, addressing not just Gaius but the watching crowd, "you will never believe." The words hit Gaius. Is that what Jesus thinks of him? That he's just another thrill seeker, chasing miracles for entertainment? Doesn't he understand the desperation that drove a Roman official to humble himself before a Jewish teacher? "Sir," Gaius says, the word catching in his throat. He's not used to addressing anyone as sir, especially not a commoner. "Sir, come down before my child dies." The simplicity of the plea silences the murmurs of the crowd. There is no pretense now, no authority, no dignity. Just a father begging for his son's life. Jesus' expression softens, almost imperceptibly. For a long moment, he says nothing. Gaius waits, heart pounding. Will Jesus come with him? The journey back to Capernaum would take hours, even if they could find fresh horses. Hours his son might not have. Go, Jesus says finally. Your son will live. Just that. 4 simple words. No dramatic gestures, no elaborate prayers, no promise to accompany him back to Capernaum. Gaius stares, uncomprehending. Is this a dismissal? A refusal? Or could it possibly be the answer to his prayers? But Gaius begins, then stops. What more can he say? How can he explain that he came for Jesus himself, came to bring the healer to his son's bedside, came expecting a touch, a prayer, something tangible? Jesus holds his gaze steadily. Go, your son will live. There's a certainty in Jesus' voice that Gaius has never heard before. Not from the emperor's messengers, not from Herod's pronouncements, not from the most confident physician. It's the voice of someone who knows that reality will bend to his words. And in that moment, something shifts inside Gaius. Something he doesn't yet have a name for. Something that feels like the first fragile tendril of faith. Without another word, he turns and pushes his way back through the crowd. That's it? Someone mutters as he passes. He's not even going to insist? I would demand proof, another says. But Gaius keeps walking, because something extraordinary has happened. Not to his son, not yet, but to him. He believes, without evidence, without proof, without seeing. He simply believes. As he retrieves his exhausted horse, a local man approaches, offering a fresh mount. I heard, the man says simply. Take my horse. He's rested. Return him when you can. Gaius thanks him, transfers his saddle, and mounts the fresh horse. The sun has set now, and the journey back will be in darkness. Yet strangely, he feels no need to rush, as he did before. Your son will live. The words echo in his mind as he rides out of Cana. Not your son will be healed, or I will try to help your son. Your son will live. Present tense. Certainty. As if it were already accomplished. The night air cools his skin as he travels the road back to Capernaum. Stars appear overhead, countless points of light in the vast darkness. Gaius finds himself looking up at them, wondering at the God who hung them there. The God this Jesus seems to know so intimately. The Roman gods of his upbringing suddenly seem small, distant, capricious. But this God, the God of the Jews, the God Jesus calls Father, seems present, active, concerned with the suffering of a single child. As Gaius rides through the night, something like peace settles over him. Not because he knows with certainty that his son is healed, the doubt still whispers at the edges of his mind, but because he has done all he can do. He has surrendered the outcome to something, someone, greater than himself. For a man accustomed to control, it's both terrifying and strangely freeing. Hours pass. The road unwinds beneath his horse's hooves. Gaius's body aches with fatigue, but his mind remains alert, focused on a single thought. Your son will live. The first light of dawn is breaking over the hills when Gaius sees Capernaum in the distance. The Sea of Galilee glimmers beyond the town, catching the early morning sun. His heart quickens. What will he find at home? Has Jesus' word proven true? Or will he return to mourning and bitter disappointment? As he approaches the outskirts of town, he sees a figure running toward him on the road. Even at a distance, he recognizes one of his servants. Gaius reins in his horse, his hands suddenly unsteady. the servant's face. Is that grief or joy? He can't tell, not yet. Master, the servant calls, still running. Gaius dismounts, his legs nearly buckling beneath him after the long night's ride. He steadies himself against the horse's flank, waiting, unable to call out, unable to ask the question burning in his throat. The servant reaches him, breathless, bowing hastily. Master, he says, your son. Tell me, Gaius interrupts, gripping the man's shoulders. The servant's face breaks into a wide smile. He lives. The fever broke yesterday. He's asking for food this morning. Gaius's knees give way. He sinks to the dusty road, his hand over her mouth, tears blurring his vision. Relief crashes over him like a wave, so powerful he can barely breathe. When? He manages to ask. When did he begin to recover? The servant kneels beside him. Yesterday, master, at the 7th hour. The fever left him suddenly, completely. The physician says he's never seen anything like it. The 7th hour, roughly 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Gaius closes his eyes, remembering the moment in Cana. The moment Jesus said, your son will live. The moment he chose to believe. It was the 7th hour. Rising to his feet, Gaius places a hand on the servant's shoulder. Tell me everything. As they walk toward home, the servant describes the miracle, how the boy had been slipping away, barely breathing, how the household had been preparing for the worst, how suddenly at the 7th hour the child had sat up, the fever gone, asking for water, then food, then where his father was. It was as if death itself turned and fled from his bedside, the servant says. The physician called it a divine intervention. We've been celebrating all night, master. They reach Gaius's home just as the sun clears the eastern hills. The courtyard is filled with servants and neighbors, a stark contrast to the somber silence of the day before. And there in the center of it all, sitting on a bench wrapped in a blanket despite the warmth of the morning, is his son. The boy looks up, sees his father, and his face lights with a smile that pierces Gaius's heart. Father, he calls, starting to rise. Gaius rushes forward, gathering his son into his arms, feeling the coolness of his skin, the strength returning to his small frame. He holds him tightly, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. When he finally pulls back to look at his son's face, he sees color in the cheeks that were ashen just a day ago. The eyes that were dull with fever now shine with life. You found the healer? His son asks. Gaius nods, smoothing the boy's hair back from his forehead. I found him, and he healed you with just his word. His wife approaches, her eyes red from crying. Not tears of grief now, but of joy. What kind of man can heal from 20 miles away? She asks in wonder. Not a man, Gaius says softly. Not merely a man. That evening, after the celebrations have quieted and his son has fallen asleep, a natural, healthy sleep, Gaius sits alone in his courtyard. Above him, the same stars that witnessed his midnight journey home now watch as he contemplates what has happened. His entire household has been transformed, not just by the miracle itself, but by what it represents. The servants who witnessed the healing are talking among themselves about this Jesus. His wife has been asking questions about the God of Israel, and Gaius himself feels as though he's awakened from a lifetime of sleep. The next morning, he gathers everyone together. Family, servants, even a few curious neighbors who have heard the story. I'm going back to find Jesus, he announces, not to ask for anything more, but to thank him and to learn from him. Anyone who wishes to come with me is welcome. To his surprise, every single person, from his wife to the lowest servant, steps forward. And so they go, a most unusual procession making its way from Capernaum to wherever Jesus might be found. A Roman official, his Jewish wife, their half-Roman, half-Jewish son, and their entire household, united not by authority or obligation now, but by something far more powerful. Faith. What can we learn from this extraordinary story of desperation, faith, and healing? First, we see that crisis often precedes spiritual breakthrough. It was his son's life-threatening illness that drove Gaius to seek Jesus. Without that desperate need, he might never have humbled himself to approach a Jewish teacher, might never have discovered the true God. How often do our own crises, health scares, relationship breakdowns, financial disasters, serve as doorways to deeper faith? The very moments when we feel most abandoned by God may be the moments He's drawing us closest. Second, we witness the journey from desperate hope to genuine faith. When Gaius first sought Jesus, he was looking for a magical solution, a healer who would follow him home and perform a miracle. But Jesus offered something far more profound, an opportunity to believe without seeing. "Go," Jesus said, "your son will live." And Gaius went. That simple act, turning and heading home with nothing but Jesus' word to cling to, was the birth of true faith. How many of us are willing to take Jesus at His word, to step out in faith before we see results, to believe first rather than demanding proof before commitment? Third, we see that faith is confirmed by action. Gaius didn't just say he believed Jesus. He demonstrated his belief by going home without insisting Jesus accompany him. His actions proved his faith was real. James would later write, "Faith without works is dead." Gaius's story illustrates this principle perfectly. His faith was alive because it changed his behavior. Fourth, we learn that genuine faith spreads to others. One man's encounter with Jesus led to an entire household believing. Their faith wasn't secondhand. They witnessed the miracle themselves, but it was sparked by Gaius's testimony and transformation. Who might be watching your faith journey today? Whose life might be transformed because they see God at work in you? Fifth, notice how Jesus' response challenged Gaius's expectations. "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you will never believe." These seemingly harsh words actually invited Gaius to a deeper level of faith, beyond the miraculous, beyond the spectacular, to simple trust in Jesus' character and word. Sometimes God's reluctance to give us exactly what we ask for, in exactly the way we expect, is His means of deepening our relationship with Him. Finally, we see that faith transforms our identity. Gaius began this story as a royal official, a man defined by his position, authority, and connection to Herod's court. He ended it as a follower of Jesus, defined by his relationship to the true King. His external circumstances didn't change. He presumably returned to his duties as an official, but his internal identity had been completely transformed. No longer was his worth tied to his rank or accomplishments. Now it was anchored in something far more secure, his connection to the God who healed his son. The story of Gaius, the desperate father, the dying son, the long journey, the unexpected miracle, reminds us that faith is not primarily about getting what we want from God. It's about discovering who God is and who we can become in relationship with Him. Gaius sought a healer but found the Savior. He asked for physical restoration but received spiritual transformation. He approached Jesus as a royal official but left as a humble believer. And this same Jesus awaits your faith today. Not faith as a formula to get what you want. Not faith as a magical solution to life's problems. But faith as trust in his character, his wisdom, and his love, even when the path forward isn't what you expected. Whatever crisis you're facing right now, whatever desperate need has brought you to the end of yourself, know this. Jesus sees you, just as he saw Gaius, just as he acknowledged the Father's love for his Son, just as he responded with compassion and power. Your situation may look impossible. The distance between your need and its solution may seem as vast as the 20 miles from Capernaum to Cana, but Jesus' power is not limited by distance, by time, or by human impossibility. The same Jesus who said, "Your son will live," speaks into your situation today. The question is not whether he can work miracles. The question is whether, like Gaius, you will take him at his word and step out in faith before you see the results.